Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
The Nanosecond podcast is sponsored by CrookedRiverRadio.com. Crooked River Radio is an internet radio station that is live 24/7 playing rock and adult contemporary top 40 hits from the 60s through the 90s. You can find us on Live 365, Simple Radio, Roku, Radio Garden, and even Alexa, as well as our website. Come on and join us on the Crooked River.
Welcome to the Nanosecond podcast. With your hosts, Erik Nanno, Nick Goglioni, and Pat Morrow. Interesting topics, intriguing conversation, and entertainment. Erik, Nick, and Pat will be right with you.
Well, hello and welcome to an afternoon edition of the Nanosecond podcast. I'm Erik.
And I'm Pat. And Nick's on assignment.
Yep. A very special assignment.
He's on account. On account he's not here.
Yeah. He actually has a interesting event that we'll talk about when he comes back. He wrote a single. He's shooting the music video tonight. I'll be there, actually.
Oh, sweet.
But, yeah, that's why we had to change around the show. But anyway, without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. His name is Demetri Ravanos from Barrett Sports Media. How you doing today, Demetri?
I am good. Thank you guys so much for having me on today.
You're welcome. So, first topic.
Wait, did it take you a minute to decide whether or not I was welcome to be on?
No. Thank you for being so.
That was a little drama effect there.
That was awesome. I appreciate that.
You wait, Erik, hang on a second. You got to understand, Demetri. He gets flustered really easy. Just listen when I talk to him.
Listen, I'm happy. I'm happy there are other nerds for this business in this world that value what I have to say about it.
I'm the only one I know that is interested in this. So it's nice to actually have somebody that knows about this stuff to talk to. So first topic, or first question, do you think any of the podcast networks out there, like we talked about before the show, Colin Cowherd or Outkick, what do you think they'll ever, one of them could turn into a radio network to maybe compete with like ESPN or Fox?
I will tell you from conversations both with Colin and with the guys that run like the physical day-to-day operations of his network, the Volume. They have no design. They are very happy being a digital product. I could see Outkick going as sort of like, gosh, you might be too young to remember this, but Pat, maybe you do. When the UPN and the WB launch, they were called a netlist, right? Where they didn't cover all of the hours of the day the way CBS, ABC, NBC, and Fox do. I could see Outkick doing something like that, where maybe they don't have a morning show, but their midday show, I can't remember what it's called now, but it was called Outkick 360. Dan Dockich occupy the middle of the day, and that is something that has appeal in the Midwest and in the South, where college sports are really, really big. But for the most part, I think what you find, Erik, is radio networks trying to think about how they adapt for a digital world more than the other way around.
Oh, do you see a possibility in the radio, everything kind of more heading toward the audio versus stations paying for towers in 20 years, maybe doing a internet radio type thing? A little behind the scenes about me, I used to own a internet radio station where I ran Sports Map Radio.
Okay.
But what do you see with that?
I think that I think that there are already live digital networks out there, and I think that every radio group knows it is important, especially as we're staring down the barrel of AM radio, the AM band going the way of the dinosaur. I think everybody knows it's important that your stuff goes through an app, right? But I think that terrestrial radio signals are always going to have a place, and you guys can think about this from the standpoint of, I don't know, like the Guardians here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live. I think about it from the standpoint of the Carolina Hurricanes, or the morning after, like Duke, North Carolina college basketball. That's a national brand thing, right? Here locally, UNC versus State is even bigger. You cannot count on a national radio show or a national podcast talking about that at all, even if it's specifically a college basketball podcast. So local sports, I think, will always have a spot on terrestrial radio, easy to find, in everybody's car, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't mean that these groups do not know that they have to invest real money in the digital side of things, whether that is a functioning app on their own, or some groups like iHeartMedia, which used to be Clear Channel, Odyssey. Some of those groups have one app you go to and you can get all their stations. Whatever way radio stations decide to do it, they know they have to do it.
Are these stations, are these companies realizing that, like, we have a local station here in the Cleveland area, that 1350, which is the Fox Sports affiliate. They're all national. Which, okay, there's a little bit of a market for that, but I think, to be all national is kind of wasting a spot, on the radio dial, where Cleveland, I think, can handle 3 sports talk stations. So, maybe not full knowledge, but, why do stations do that if they're going to claim they're from a market and then do all national? What's the point of that?
It's a really simple answer. It's not a satisfying one at all, but I'm telling you the reason is there is no more expensive format to put on the radio than sports. Even news talk, which is similarly structured, does not have as many people unless you're operating a full newsroom. Now, 1350 in Cleveland, correct me if I'm wrong, also tends to focus everything through the lens of gambling, right?
Yeah, the Gambler.
Yeah. So I think that as sports gambling spreads across the country, I think these groups are learning that, we're probably going to get mobile wagering in North Carolina before football season, right? There are people here that have been gambling. Listen, it's not legal, but I find a way to do it every Saturday for college football, right? I think that these radio groups are recognizing you need some people that know what they're talking about, that can intelligently discuss point spreads and, what information they're using for prop bets and all that stuff. And a lot of us that have been gambling, even those of us that are in radio, haven't really had to sit there and explain it, because we're doing it in ways that, I guess politely, we would like the government not to know about, as I sit here and talk about it on a podcast. So I think that from that standpoint, national networks have a lot of value. And really, like I said, at the end of the day, sports is a really expensive format. You say Cleveland can handle 3 sports stations. I don't doubt you, but I would tell you that, look at Detroit, which is significantly larger, that has proven, it can't handle more than 1. And that has nothing to do, that doesn't necessarily say anything about Cleveland. Every sports market is very different. Here in Raleigh, there aren't a lot of people here that are from here. So you can do all the North Carolina, Duke, NC State talk you want to. It's not going to resonate with a whole lot of people. And so in those markets, national sports talk has a lot of appeal.
We actually, a few weeks ago, talked to Nick Wilson from 92.3, who also
One of
did the show down
one of
in.
my very best friends. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. But so he was kind of saying the same thing about about there being so many things, like the different colleges, to talk about down there, or like that are the most popular thing down there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Nick was in Charlotte, which at least has the Panthers, right? At least has
Yeah.
the Hornets. Here, we've got the Hurricanes, but like I think the way I describe the Hurricanes all the time to people from outside the market is they aren't a hockey team. They're a bar where hockey happens, right? Like it's more of a social thing to go out and do. Certainly there are dedicated fans here, but that is not the majority of the people that go to their games. The fan base here is all over the place. I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Like I grew up in Alabama. I went to the University of Alabama. I love college football. I could give a flying fart about college basketball. Them losing on Friday was the best thing that happened during my year because I can stop pretending to care now. Last year, when Duke and UNC played in the Final Four, I was talking to my next door neighbor who is from Haiti. His wife is from Texas. The neighbor on the other side of them, I can't remember where they're from, but we were talking about, well, do we want to do something? Do we all want to get together to watch the Final Four game, Duke versus UNC, on Saturday night? And overwhelmingly, the consensus was, well, why? We don't care. We're not from here. There are a lot of markets, especially down here in the South, that are like that. But I've never, like, it is overwhelming here in Raleigh that it is hard to figure out what the sport that unites the entire city.
I've seen both sides of this. I've seen, here in Cleveland, we've had some really pathetic football teams.
Yes.
We've had some really pathetic minor league teams also. But it always seems that even with the Guardians, when they changed the Guardians name from the Indians, people were throwing a fit over it because nobody's used to change like that. But it always seems like when if it's a certain sport, Cleveland and the Ohio area has probably some of the most enthusiastic fans around. I mean, the Dog Pound, for instance, with Cleveland.
Yeah.
That thing's full. It don't matter what their record is. That thing is full every flipping time there's a game.
I often wonder, what is it that you hate about yourself so much that you can't find something better to do on Sunday than watch this sorry-ass team? And it's not just the Dog Pound, by the way. I mean, I'm a Buccaneers fan, or at least was a Buccaneers fan before I just started rooting for my money over teams. Like, at some point, you have to realize, like, it's okay that I not do this to myself. I respect people that are all in for their team come hell or high water, right? I really do. That's just not the way that I consume sports. I've got an 11-year-old son, so I have very much seen the value of I'm just going to root for players instead of teams. That's the way he consumes games, and I find it to be a fun way to watch the NBA. I mean, I grew up a huge Celtics fan. That is still my team, but my son likes Luka Doncic, so we watch Mavericks highlights. He likes Giannis Antetokounmpo, so we watch the Bucks. He likes Donovan, so we watch the Cavs. It's going to be very interesting for our industry how we adjust to this particular generation becoming the tastemakers in terms of how we cover sports.
And that's where you got to wonder how this social media and how the internet media is going to take and be 20 years from now. Is it going to destroy the airwave stuff? Is it going to just enhance it? I think there's room for both of them. I just don't know how they're going to fit together.
Yeah, I mean, listen, on a Saturday during college football season, I've got like 4 screens going, and 2 of them are digital, right? An iPad and a laptop. And I find that some of the regional broadcasts, I like when they do the second screen experience streaming as well. So you can watch the game, and then maybe you have, a gambling-centric feed. Or I can't remember, I think it was DC, I think it was Washington, D.C.'s NBC Sports affiliate where the Wizards play. They basically gamified their broadcast, right? Like it made a little video game out of it. I think those things are really cool. I think what we overlooked sometimes is certainly something like TikTok has changed the way kids consume sports. But let's not dismiss the influence of something like Red Zone, which was around
Yeah,
before social
exactly.
media exploded the way it did. Like, why would you ever watch an entire football game if you grew up just watching touchdowns?
Exactly.
Exactly. That kind of leads into the next thing, with the ESPN restructuring, and to explain to listeners how that is, it's cord cutting. Um, and that's what's kind of causing the, actually it's a Disney restructure involving ESPN. But can you tell the listeners kind of what that is
Sure.
a
So
little bit?
Disney reorganized into three silos. It used to be much bigger in terms of how many different divisions, but now there are three silos of the company. They are entertainment, parks and experiences, and ESPN is now its own silo. And listen, I'm going to, I don't know if only you guys can see this, if there is an audience watching the video, but look, I've got an arm dedicated to Star Wars tattoos. Obviously, I am all in on Disney, right? The reason you restructure is so, and this is true across any business, right? It is so that at the very top you can see where the money is being spent and how that is paying off in each division. It's not just the fact that cord cutting has affected how many homes have ESPN and thus how much they can charge cable companies and satellite providers and these YouTube TVs of the world to carry ESPN. It is also that, Disney Parks has to spend a lot of money to keep up with Universal. I mean, what Universal has just rolled out in LA with Super Nintendo World is game changing in the theme park industry. It is the fact that Disney Entertainment, for the better part of 3 years, spent on original programming for Disney Plus like money had no meaning. So now it is a sort of time to pay the piper kind of thing. It does mean that ESPN, I think, could be spun off. I think the most interesting thing from a sports media standpoint is now that ESPN is its own entity entirely. What does this mean? What does this mean for this summer when the NBA starts negotiating its new television rights deal? Because ESPN plans to be very much in the center of that.
I mean, it expand to the whole Bally Sports thing, and we'll get back to uh, Disney in a minute. Because like we talked about before the show, there was something. But I mean, with Bally Sports going out, they these baseball teams are going to need a place. All the teams, but specifically baseball, because there's four teams that are having trouble getting their rights fees paid. Maybe eventually they'll go to ESPN Plus or
Could
something.
be. It could be. I mean, it could be. Look, Major League Baseball is trying to launch its own streaming platform right now, basically so that their teams never deal with this again. Um, and look, let's not rule out the possibility that Bally Sports comes out of bankruptcy and is stronger and able to support these Major League Baseball teams. The regional sports network model, which is, Bally Sports Ohio, Bally Sports Midwest. I mean, name wherever you're listening, think about where you watch your favorite baseball team from day to day. That's called a regional sports network. The model doesn't work anymore because the model of cable doesn't really have the same appeal that it used to. Personally, I think it should because it is better than paying, $29.99 for each individual sports streaming service. But because it doesn't have the appeal, a lot of these networks are getting dropped. And if the networks are getting dropped, that means they are making less money, and that means they have less money to spend on rights for these games. And if you are Bally, like look at Bally Sports Ohio. They've got the Guardians, they've got the Reds, they've got the Cavs, they've got the Blue Jackets. I mean, that's four teams right there. Not to mention whatever you're paying, excuse me, for games in like the Ohio Valley Conference or the Missouri Valley Conference or the Horizon League. Like, no matter how small the college conferences are, the networks still have to pay for those. So if you're not bringing in as much, you have a lot less to spend, and that's how you get to bankruptcy. And that's how you get something like what you suggested, Eric. Like ESPN might be able to swoop in here on the cheap and really add to ESPN Plus's value.
Would it almost be smarter for these teams to jump in, like, for example, the Cavs and the Guardians, to jump in together and start their own network? And so they're not, owned by, because I know the Guardians tried with up here with Sports Time Ohio, but that failed. So if they join together to start a network, would that work instead of having a corporately based network where they're across the country?
I mean, look, we've seen it with individual teams, right? The Yankees own Yes up in New York City. The Orioles own Masson in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. The Cubs own part of Marquee. So Bally gets all the headlines, but AT&T Sportsnet is also having problems. And AT&T Sportsnet is much smaller, right? And one of the things you saw immediately was AT&T Sports, I believe it's called AT&T Sports Southwest down in Texas. The Rangers and the Rockets got together and said, we don't want to be at anybody's mercy. We'll buy this from you, or we'll, if you are planning on ceasing operations of the network anyway, just give it to us. So I think teams certainly see the value of owning the platform for their games. The question then becomes, games are only on for at most 3 hours a night. What are you doing with the other 21 hours of the day? If you're the Yankees, if you're the Cubs, you've got back catalog material for days to fill. If you're the Rangers and the Rockets, I mean, how many times can you rerun the 94-95 NBA Finals before people stop tuning in for it? If they can solve that mystery, then yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, like, up here, they just had reruns. There's this guy, there's this golf pro named Jimmy Hamlin, where he does like 7 different shows that's just repeated and repeated. It's like, how many times do we need to see his face?
I mean, listen, some of that is probably Jimmy paying for that, or whoever Jimmy's sponsors are paying for that. And look, if that's how you're generating revenue, then more power to you. But at the same time, I think you do have to think about, does that devalue the overall product in terms of selling advertising? Are you cutting off your nose to spite your face by getting into that kind of deal? Like I said, that's the biggest question any network, or excuse me, any team thinking about launching their own network has to answer for themselves.
So back to the ESPN thing, something I had heard suggested is the direct-to-consumer, which, might look good on paper, but who's going to want to pay for, watching their sporting, like their college team or their pro team or whatever, or Sports Center? People have so much money.
Okay, so you're right. People only have so much money, right? But we already pay for that stuff. We just pay for it in the form of a cable bill as opposed to an individual service. Now, the price point is going to be a huge part of does this work? But if it is the only place you can get ESPN, I mean, look, like I said, I went to Bama. I'm a huge college football fan. Every single bit of the SEC's television product is going to be on ESPN. I'll be damned if I'm missing a game. I'll pay whatever I need to in order to watch my team.
We're the same way with the Buckeyes up here.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, enjoy all your national championship game losses. You earned them. I think that ESPN is the network more than any other that will be a game changer, especially for the old school cable bundle, if they decide they are exclusively available as a streaming service now. Right. And listen, like, you just mentioned that you are that way for the Buckeyes. Hey, what if Fox decides that's what FS1 is going to do? Now, granted, they are never putting the Buckeyes on FS1, right? The Buckeyes are the biggest television draw in college football. They will always be on network television. But if you are Fox, you are definitely thinking, well, I can't put the Michigan game on. I probably can't put the Penn State game on, but who's to say I can't make, I don't know, the UCLA game, the traditional Big Ten rival UCLA. Who's to say I can't make that a streaming-only product and drive subscriptions. Notre Dame does this every year with Peacock, right? They pick the crappiest game on the schedule, and you can only see it on Peacock. The first time they did that, we almost got the Toledo upset of Notre Dame, right? It's not going to happen all at once everywhere, but you're already starting to see those seeds planted of, hey, if you're a super fan, you need this service. Sorry, my headphones are way too small for my ears.
That's okay. For those of you just tuning in, we're talking to Demetri Ravanos from Barrett Sports Media. And I had a question and it slipped my mind. Oh,
Hey, that happens.
since it slipped my mind, I guess I could go with my popular question to everybody we have on. What do you think of the XFL?
I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not going to do that to myself. It's crappy football. I think that listen. So I grew up an insomniac, right? I could never fall asleep when I was a kid. So I became a diehard fan of the University of Hawaii's football team because even if everyone else was asleep, the Rainbow Warriors were there for me. So that being said, I do want the Houston Roughnecks to do well with Cole McDonald as quarterback. But the extent of my devotion to that team is I check my ESPN app to see how they did the next day. I don't care. I think these spring football leagues, XFL, USFL, I think the goal for them should be on the network side, not about viewership. It's about what can we showcase to bring to the NFL or to major college football. And what you're seeing, like what works for the XFL, what's getting all the buzz, is the transparency for the replay system. Like, I think we're going to get to a point where we demand that, at least for NFL games.
I was really shocked. I don't know if you've seen the ratings at all for the XFL. But
Yeah, I don't think the XFL has seen the ratings for the XFL.
well, what they allegedly release, I'm shocked that they're getting that many, and it stayed consistent over, like 200,000 people watching.
I mean, listen, The Rock did not buy this league to have 200,000 people watching every week. But, look, how many years in a row have we seen some garbage spring football product rolled out and been told that, like, hey, it's like you're getting football year round? Well, no, it's not, I mean, we have minor league football already. It's called college football, and we play it during football season, and it's got brand names that we know and we feel passionately about. The Seattle Sea Monsters, or whatever they're called, it's not going to it's not going to be like must-see TV no matter what NFL. God, forgive me for this, because I know how hard these guys work, but no matter how many or which NFL has-beens roll through that league, it's never going to elicit the kind of, oh, I've got to watch that, as, Alabama LSU does every year, as Michigan Ohio State has the last couple of years. I mean, those are games that no matter where you are in the country, if it's on TV, you stop and watch a little bit. I have not been moved to see what the Seattle Battlehawks or the St. Louis Battlehawks are doing today.
I was myself. I'm more into the USFL than I am the XFL. But there again, you got to kind of wonder if somehow this could all be combined into like a farm league for the NFL. Yeah.
I don't think the NFL necessarily wants to invest that way. I mean, remember NFL Europe, it only cost each team $1 million apiece, and they decided they didn't even want to do that. So I think the NFL is very comfortable with their, at a distance relationship they have going with the NFL. I think the USFL in particular, because it's owned by Fox, you got to look at as that should be Fox trying to figure out how to make NFL broadcasts better more than anything else. That's the most valuable it can be to that network.
Let's switch gears here quick. I know we're a little limited on time. What do you think of the Lamar Jackson asking for a trade?
I mean,
it's going to happen?
Listen, you guys up in Cleveland made this happen, right? Like you have one of the dumbest owners.
It breaks
in all
our heart
sports.
up here, I'm telling you.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have one of the dumbest owners in all of sports that has made the entire league hate him now because he does not know what Deshaun Watson's or did not know what Deshaun Watson's real value was to the rest of the league. If you're Lamar Jackson and you can point to, hey, I've never touched myself in front of strangers, and also I have an MVP award. I get it. You better be paying me more than the Browns are paying Deshaun Watson. I also get that the Ravens want to string this out as long as they can. I don't think they're going to end up trading him, and I think they are going to end up giving him an offer that may not be exactly what he wants, but is closer to what it is than what they are offering right now. Look, man, the Ravens are nothing without that dude. He is the ultimate game changer in this league at quarterback.
Well, so, when it comes to streaming services, do you see more sports being brought to like the Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mentioned the NBA TV contract. Just wait, it's going to end up either at Amazon or Apple, like a new package of games. Not that TNT or ESPN are going to lose their games. A new package of games will end up at either Amazon or Apple, maybe both. But it's going to happen. I think that sports fans have to get very comfortable with the fact that if you want to see everything, it's going to cost a different dollar amount than it used to.
Do you see any networks getting into that aren't already in the live sports area, getting into the live sports broadcasting? Like I had saw something possibly about the Reels network.
No, I think that the CW was the most likely, and I think that if you are that network, you don't feel very good about the future of Live Golf, which is where they decided to start. I think you could see live games on new networks, but that doesn't mean new players, right? Like I think that, let's say NBC really wants to be back in business with the NBA. Let's say they get it. I could see games going to USA Network, but excuse me, that is still NBC that is producing those games. I could see more sports in the future coming to TBS, but again, they're already in business with the NBA and with Major League Baseball through Turner Sports. So new networks, yeah, I think that's possible. New companies, no, man, like there's nothing more expensive than live sports rights, and there's a reason. It's the only thing people watch live anymore. Live sports and breaking news coverage, right? Like we don't tape delay elections.
Yes, good point there.
That's one thing we won't talk about on this network at all. Politics.
I mean, listen, I'm just talking about it from a media standpoint, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
think about how long
yeah.
things got drug out in the 2020 election. Like, could you imagine not experiencing that live after that many days?
Oh
like,
my God, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way, that's the value of politics, or I guess of live news and of sports. That's the value.
Could you see, USA, because I know NBC owned their own sports network, but that folded. Could you see USA ever getting into like a live studio type show like NBC Sports had with Pro Football Talk? Or
No, I think that the value of sports television for networks that are not purely dedicated to sports is solely in live games and maybe shoulder programming, right? Pre-game and post-game. But no, I can't ever see a CNN or sorry, a USA or a TBS or a TNT throwing on, their version of First Take at 6:00 on a weekday afternoon.
could you see CB? I know they're already a sports network, but it seems like they only do like the radio shows as live shows. But CBS Sports Network kind of getting more into that.
I mean, I could, but at the same time, again, I go back to the value being in live games, and CBS Sports Network has struggled to get the kind of clearance that ESPNU has. And that matters to these networks, right? There's a reason that if you turn on CBS Sports Network on hell, whether it's a college football Saturday or just on a weekend when they're carrying college basketball, There's a reason a lot of those games are from the Mountain. There's a reason a lot of those games are from the Mountain West. Like, those are the leagues that people are not clamoring for. Even when CBS had first pick of SEC games every single week, the SEC made it very clear, you will not put us on CBS Sports Network ever. Even replays don't go to CBS Sports Network. So I think would CBS Sports Network like to have the money to do more? Absolutely. The problem is they don't have the clout to generate the money to do more.
I think Fox made a mistake trying to be ESPN too fast. And I say that because they launched at the same time of launching Fox Sports 1, they also launched Fox Sports 2. And like using DirecTV as an example, nobody knows, I do because I'm a nerd like that, but nobody knows where Fox Sports 2 is on their TV, if their TV even has Fox Sports 2. Like, I mean, all they have is canned horse racing on there.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean,
But-
listen, there are logistical things that go into a decision like that, right? Fox Sports 1 is born out of the fact that the company owns Speed Network, Fuel TV, and Fox Soccer Channel, right? Those are three small cable networks. Speed had better clearance than anything else, so it became Fox Sports 1. You can't just shutter those other two networks. So FS2 was born out of the fact that all of this drag racing has to go somewhere, right? And then eventually it became horse racing as well. And I think from the get-go, they were doing European soccer before that became like the big investment market for live sports in this country. I think Fox Sports 2 is a matter of cable networks still have value to these businesses, and you're not just going to shut it down. But I'm with you. Like, there was no need for it really, other than, like I said, all of these races, all of this, second tier Italian soccer has to go somewhere because we're paying for it.
Good. Yeah, that's a good point. Pat, do you have anything?
The other thing that wait a minute, I need to ask you how much time have we got with you? I forgot to ask you that.
I could do probably about 5 more minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Let's drop into the NFL a little bit and do some NFL talk here. As far as the some of the drafts or some of the free agency stuff, I know Cleveland's done a slew of it.
Yeah.
Where do you think the biggest changes has been, and what do you think's coming?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this is not qualified for the biggest change necessarily, but if you want to talk about a big culture change, I don't think you can discount the fall off the cliff that is about to happen in Tampa, going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield.
I'm telling you what.
I've been making the joke that whether they are, whatever you want to say, ache for Drake, crash for Caleb, quit for Quinn, like clearly that's the game plan going forward in Tampa. I mean, it's interesting to me, and this happens every year when a quarterback is up for a new contract. There is this real, uneasy tension going on in the market right now because we are waiting to see if the Jets are going to get this thing done with Aaron Rodgers, and also we're waiting to see if some NFL team is going to stop pretending they don't want Lamar Jackson and make that move. So if you're asking me what the big game changer is, I don't know that we've seen it yet.
Do you think Dallas is going to keep Dak?
Yeah. I mean, whatever we think of Dak, look at what else is available out there. I mean, the Buccaneers went out and signed a free agent quarterback that might have been the best one available. And I mean, as a Buccaneers fan, I'm not excited at all. I'm dreading what we have this season. I think that because we look at guys like Josh Allen, like Joe Burrow, obviously like Patrick Mahomes, and we see the very, very top tier of quarterbacks are just on this different level, we forget that it's possible to be just good in this league. And even that is hard to replace. So, I don't buy into it's Cooper Rush season. I don't buy into it being easy to replace Dak Prescott if you are the Cowboys, unless you are going to give up everything and try and get towards the top of the draft. And even then, I think if you're not getting Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, you really don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, I think Stroud's probably going to be pretty close to the top if he isn't the number one.
It's going to be one of those two, right? I mean, I get the impression being here in North Carolina that they like Stroud in terms of ready to come in right away. I think that they look at Bryce and they see a guy with unreal pocket presence, especially for what will be a rookie. The question is, at 5'10", 204, A, can that guy hold up? And B, can you develop him in a way that strengthens his arm? Because he's got a really good arm, but everybody in the NFL has a really good arm. If you can get to that next level and you have that pocket presence of this dude is just never flustered, that's elite, but that's a question mark right now.
Where do you think OBJ is going to end up? Or is he?
I would think that the three most likely places are Dallas, because you can never count them out from doing something stupid. Would be New York, the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers really puts his foot down and says, this is the guy I want. Or Baltimore, because they need a receiver. They need a game-changing kind of receiver to bail out Lamar Jackson, particularly if he's coming back. I like Rashad Bateman a lot, but Rashad Bateman is not the dude that's going to change your fortunes as a receiver in this league. And I could see that being like an olive branch kind of thing they do for Lamar Jackson.
As far as even Baker Mayfield's going down there to Tampa Bay, he's a Jekyll and Hyde is what he is. You know,
I've been comparing him to Kyrie Irving. Like, it is okay, dude, to just admit you don't want to do this anymore. That's totally fine. Nobody will blame you. You've made enough money. Go be a commercial actor for the rest of your life. But it is clear to even the most uneducated of football fans, you don't want to play football anymore.
And you got to wonder what's going to happen to that team down there now that Brady has officially gone. You know, it's hard to tell what's going to.
I'm surprised they didn't go fire sale. I feel terrible for Mike Evans, who has done everything and more for that team. And aside from the 2 years he got with Brady, they just kept taking a huge dump on him every single year, and we're right back to it.
Yeah, I think we're headed that way again.
So, as we wrap things up, thank you for joining us, number one. But
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, for people who don't know what Barrett Sports Media is, can you tell us a little bit about it?
I guess the best way to describe it for people that aren't in the industry is we are the ESPN of ESPN, right? Like, we cover everything sports media. So everything from as big and mainstream as ESPN to as small and not mainstream, or not small, but as outside the mainstream as Barstool. Like, we're keeping an eye on all of it, watching trends, paying attention to the news. And, you know, when we're called upon, we sort of consult. We give advice to people in this industry. We just got done with a conference out in L.A. You know, I did a panel that included Joy Taylor and Nina Kimes. Al Michaels spoke at our conference. Eric Shanks, who is, the head of Fox Sports, spoke. You know, we are, and this is not me tooting our horn. This is the truth. We are one of the most respected names in terms of covering the sports media industry.
I know I said let's wrap, but can you tell us a little bit about the convention, the BSM Summit? Because I meant to ask you earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, some of the biggest of the big names come out, and it is mostly an audience of sports radio bosses, and we talk about where the media is headed, what challenges that, you know, maybe one person has faced that all of us are going to be facing coming down the pike. I mean, I mentioned some of the big names. Some others that were there were Jim Rome, Colin Cowherd, Shawn Michaels from the WWE was a part of it this year. It's always a really good time. And if you're in this business, there's no better place to learn, you know, and up your game than at our conference.
What's the easiest way to get a hold of you as far as
go to barrettsportsmedia.com. And, you know, I'm all over the page. Just click on my name and you'll see all my contact info right there.
Demetri, it's been nice meeting you, sir. And we're
yes,
happy
you guys as well. This has been a lot of fun.
We're happy you come in with us and stayed as long as you have. It is definitely appreciated. We'll have to. You're always welcome. as I tell pretty much all our other guests, you're always welcome back. If there's something you want to discuss and anything
Sure.
like that, and hopefully we can have the carte blanche to do the same with you.
Absolutely. Shoot me a message anytime. Happy to do it. Thank you so much for the invite.
It's great to have you.
No problem.
I'll turn it over to Erik to wrap it up. And the ending that we have on this show is kind of cool. You might like it, so hang in there till the end at least.
Oh, he jumped off. Okay.
Well,
Well, with that, we want to say thank you for listening.
thank you to our
is there
guest,
any-
Demetri.
Yeah. Any thing you want to just talk about? Anything you took out from that interview, or?
No, I think that I can't think of anything I wanted to cover. We
Okay.
pretty much had a discussion with him. Interesting discussion.
Yeah, I know that not everybody is interested in sports media, listeners, but I try to do different stuff every once in a while. So today was let's do something different, and hopefully you guys liked it. And if you want to contact us, either Twitter at Nanosecond Podcast, Instagram Nanosecond Podcast, Erik at crookedriverradio.com. Pat can be contacted at office at crookedriverradio.com. With that, as the saying goes, it's time to be like a hockey player and get the puck out of here.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good